Hey, thoughts find out and every conversation explores the art of thinking beyond the obvious. And today I have my special guest. One of his advocacy to be have a multi-business owner and founder of Fin Elevate, the MBA-led fractional SFO service. No other than Mr. Colin Sanburg. Welcome, Mr. Colin and Absarkase. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I miss?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me on, Daniel. From a career standpoint, entrepreneurship's basically all I've ever done. I started in a family business when I was 21, turning 22 years old. Didn't know anything about business, didn't know anything about finance, didn't know anything about how to make money, and quickly found out that we were doing everything basically the wrong way. And so learned the hard way, as I like to describe, of making every wrong decision before I finally figured out what some of the right ones were. And that just started my career off on a path of entrepreneurship and having a big appreciation for the numbers and the financial side of business, and eventually led to me starting my own fractional CFO firm to help other companies figure out the financial side of their business.
Yes, and thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, Mr. Colin. Thank you. And today let's talk about small business finance from an MBA, not a CBA. So tell us, let's start with the core premise. What is the single most important distinction between how an MBA and a CBA typically views a company's financials? Is it focused on the future growth versus historical accuracy?
Yeah, I think a CPA is going to typically look at the past and they're going to focus on just what the tax numbers are. But that's not really going to help you build a better business. They're just going to tell you what happened last year. And so we focus really heavily on looking at the future instead of the past. And like you said, it may be growth, it may be fixing your margins, it may be getting your expenses under control, but whatever it is, we have to do it going into the future because the past has already happened. We can't fix what's already happened. We've got to focus on how we use the numbers to make you smarter and build a better business for tomorrow.
Yes, for the better for tomorrow, for sure. So many small businesses owners only deep dive into their finances at tax time. How do you
Mm.
get them to shift from seeing finance as a compliance issue to a strategic intelligence tool they can use daily?
Yeah. No, that's a great point. I mean, what we see is a lot of entrepreneurs, especially under the $1 million in revenue mark, they're living out of their bank account and they're, you know, turning in their numbers for the tax return only. And so, to your point, that's not how you build a bigger, successful business. You have to get strategic. You have to get, real with those numbers. So it starts with having numbers you actually believe in, that they're actually mean something. And so, a lot of people, that's just a part of their business. It's not organized. They'd rather spend their time selling, building out their product or service that they offer. And so we really try to take a simple approach because I feel like a lot of people that work with entrepreneurs try to overcomplicate it. They're like, they go in with the mission of, let me teach this entrepreneur everything there is to know about finance. That is not what entrepreneurs want to hear. Entrepreneurs want to hear, tell me what this means and tell me what to do next. And so that's the kind of framing that we try to provide when we work with those entrepreneurs.
Mr. Colin, you talk about finance for the owner, not the accountant. What are the 2 to 3 key financial metrics a small business or CEO should looking at weekly, and what story should they tell?
Yeah. So there's really three main things that we want to see in a business. One is the top line growth. So is revenue growing and how fast? And we can look at that versus last month or last year or just year to date. It depends on the business and the way your business operates, but revenue growth is huge. The next thing is we want to look at profit, right? We like to look at operating income, which just basically means after you pay all of your bills and your overhead, what is that income number? I'm not so worried about interest expense and some of the other funky stuff that happens at the bottom, but is your operating income good? And so that is a sign of if your revenue is high enough or your cost too high. Is your margin strong? Like what's going on in the profitability part of your business? That's where we're going to find that. And then the last one is cash. So how much cash are you able to pull out of the business? Because there are businesses that look great because they're growing. And so you can go tell all your friends that now, last year we were 6 million, now we're 10 million, but you made less money this year than you did last year. That is not the goal, right? The goal is not to have lower profit as you grow. So we want to kind of see those three things, because if they're not all three working, we're going to quickly identify where the gap is and what's going wrong in the business.
Yes, identify what is wrong in the business is truly important to thrive. And Mr. Colin, how do you train business owners to look at the profit and loss statement and immediately ask the strategic "so what" question that lead to better decisions?
Yeah. Well, it starts with, I mean, you said the profit and loss. It starts with not looking at the profit and loss itself, because it's a 2 to 3 page document. It's got a bunch of big numbers, little numbers. Most of the time it's not very well organized. And so a lot of entrepreneurs, they never make it all the way through the 3 pages. They get lost somewhere along the way. They're chasing this little tiny number and trying to figure out what that one means. And the reality is, what we need is a summary version. So we use what we call the simple profit formula. It's 5 lines plus profit or loss. And so it's 6 total lines. It's going to start with revenue. It's going to go to cost of goods sold, whether you're selling a service or a product. Next, we like to look at sales and marketing costs. Then we go labor, and then we go overhead. And what's left is either a profit or a loss. And so I'm only asking you to look at 6 different data points, not 3 pages worth. And the minute you do that, and especially when you look over time and we look compared to benchmarks or targets that we've set, you very quickly identify where the problem is, where it's worth diving in and going into detail, because starting at the detailed view is just not what's right for an entrepreneur's mind and how busy they are.
Mm, yes. And Mr. Colin, on practical application and tools.
Mhm.
If CPA's favorite tools is the general ledger, what is MBA's favorite financial tool for a small business?
Yeah, I would say I'm gonna cheat and say that there's two. The first one is a forecast, right? So I care about what's coming, not what already happened. What already happened is relevant for me to understand. So, like, here's what happened so far this year. Here's what I know about the rest of the year. And with those two things combined, I create a forecast. So, a forecast is one. And the second one is a dashboard. We cannot look at this as a printed out or a PDF document with 57 different rows on it. I need to turn into something visual. Most people are very visually engaged when it comes to learning. And so whether it's for the entrepreneur themselves or their team, I need to be able to see it on a dashboard, and it just engages me in a very different way than just a row of numbers would.
Interesting, Mr. Colin. How does an MBA approach the pricing differ from simply marking up costs? What a role do psychology, value, and customer willingness to pay play in the strategy?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. My first business that I took over, one of its biggest problems was that they were just using, a margin or a markup, and they were basically just applying that to whatever the cost was. And the problem was, as costs go up, a lot of times if you have kind of a minimum margin that you want to hit, you'll notice over time, pretty soon, every product you sell is at the minimum margin, right? To your point, there's a psychology, there's a strategy. Like, pricing is one of my very favorite topics, because number one, if somebody just blindfolded me and made me offer business advice to some random small business without knowing anything, I can't even see their numbers, I would say raise your prices. That is the number one. And I could walk you through the math part of it, but Take my word for it. It is foundationally powerful. It is profound how big the impact of pricing is on your profitability. And so what ends up happening is most people who aren't comfortable selling, or maybe they're starting out and they don't have that much confidence in their product, they keep their prices low because they think that'll make it easier to sell. And the hard truth is it does. The problem with that is once you sell it, you then have to service that work, which means now because I sold it so low, I'm looking for the cheapest product that I can, put in my cost of goods. I'm looking for the cheapest labor to help me get it over the finish line. I'm looking to cut corners everywhere. Now the perception of my value is also very low. That is not a winning formula for a small business. I like to say there's only two ways to make money in this world. One is to be massive, right? We're talking Amazon, Walmart, NVIDIA, like the biggest companies in the world. The other one is to have a premium price. That's it. Like if you're smaller than $1 billion company, you need a premium price. And what you'll find is the best, most successful companies in the world, Apple, they have both. They do not ever surrender that pricing power, even when they gain great scale. So for a small company, the chance that you can somehow be the cheap guy and the little guy is literally impossible. You can do it just well enough to keep the lights on. You will never make any real money. You will never build a business of your dreams. It's just not real. So you've got to get your mind right that pricing has to be a premium. Once you have your mind wrapped around that, then it just becomes a game of like, how can I do that? How can I justify it? And a lot of times the answer is better marketing, believe it or not. All those companies I named have fantastic marketing. They don't do marketing for no reason. They don't do it just to get their name out there so they feel good. They do it so that they can either grow their scale massively or protect their premium pricing. And the best ones, again, do it for both.
Mr. Colin, the good versus bad profit. Is this a such a thing as a bad profit for small businesses?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that there are times that the business owner is making money, but it's through the business owner doing everything, right? And when you're a startup, that's normal. That's part of the process. But one of my favorite books on this topic is called "Making Money is Killing Your Business." And the basic idea is that you've gotten to be the biggest company that can successfully make money off of you as the one person. The problem is now you're stuck at that ceiling, and so your team's not involved enough in helping you make money, and so you're just kind of locked. You're stuck right there. So what the alternative is as you start to grow, you engage your team, you get them more involved, you get them helping you make money, and then you don't have this limiting factor of just how much work or how many relationships can just the owner maintain at the same time. So it's not bad. It's better than no profit, better than losing money. But there's definitely a challenge to a small company that has kind of maxed out what the founder can do and is just on the owners then on that hamster wheel. They can't get off because the minute they stop, all of a sudden the profit falls away. And so they've kind of built a trap for themselves.
The trap is there for sure. Beyond a get paid faster, pay slower. What is one sophisticated but practical cash flow management technique small businesses can implement this quarter?
Yeah, I would say this quarter. So, to your point, I want to look at it as I want my clients or customers to pay me as fast as possible. I want to take my sweet time paying my vendors, right? That's the basic logic. Everybody kind of knows that. So, I would say one of the big mistakes I see that I want people to avoid is don't give some giant discount to somebody to pay you 30 days earlier. If you do the math on that, that is a terrible trade. It sounds good, and a lot of times people don't realize the power of a small percentage if it's over a short period of time. So I'll say that's one to stay away from. In terms of collecting faster, the biggest thing, honestly, is resetting terms with customers. Again, we're the small guy, we're the premium small guy. We go to the big customers, especially if they're big, and we say, "Hey, I'm not the bank." Like it just doesn't work that way. It's really starting to harm my ability to do a good job for you. And so I need to look at these terms with you. And so sitting down and having that conversation, being willing to be that person who's willing to have that conversation is huge. You can do that with all your customers, all your clients right now. If you're in some sort of a recurring business, you need credit card on file. You need the ACH information on file. They approve it. You charge it every month. That needs to be a non-negotiable part of working with you. Like FinElevate as a company, we do not accept payment terms from people. It's just not an option. We tell them this is not our business model. I still have to pay my team, so you have to pay me. And then on the other side, when we talk about how long we pay, I would say the one trick, and I can't believe some entrepreneurs still haven't heard about this, but I always try to get the word out, is that if you can be smart and manage your money well, put as many charges as you can on credit cards and then pay them at the end. I want to pay that card in full every month. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
not, I'm not racking up credit card debt. That is the last thing I want you to do. Do not do that.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're in the discipline and you've got cash on hand and hey, I spend $15,000 every month on XYZ type of things, what I want to do is I want to put that on a credit card with cash back. And the reason is the credit card the purchases are being spent by the business. The cash back comes in the name of the business owner. And it's kind of a known loophole. There are no taxes on that income. And so I know for me, owning businesses that may do seven figures, over $1 million worth of spend with vendors every year, if I can put a big chunk of that on a credit card, I can get a ton of cash back that is just cash coming directly to me. And I slow down how fast I have to actually pay that bill because I paid it with a credit card today. And then 3 weeks from now, I actually pay the credit card bill.
Interesting, Mr. Colin, and empowering too. How can small businesses owner tell the difference between profitable growth that strengthen the company and dangerous growth that could actually kill it by straining cash flow?
Yeah, that's a great point. So the first thing you need to know the payment cycle that your customers go through. So in other words, if my customers pay me the first day we start working together and I have a significant amount of time before my expenses come due, I can afford to grow a lot faster. So you need to know when the cash, you almost need to like map it out, 0 days, 15 days, 30 days, 45 days, 60 days, map out that timeline so that you understand when do I get paid and when do I lay out cash. That's the first thing. The second thing is, there's this concept that's been around called the rule of 40. The rule of 40 states that my growth and my profit combined should be 40%, depending on the type of business that I am. So what does that mean? It means that I can have a trade-off between growth and profitability. But what I can't do is I can't say I'm growing 30% year over year and therefore I'm losing money. That does not work. If I'm growing 30% year over year, I need to be making 10% profit at a minimum. And I would argue 10% is kind of a minimum baseline for profit that any business can sustainably make and survive and be healthy and not run high risks.
Definitely. And Mr. Colin, when is the right time for small business or businesses to hire a fractional CFO or financial strategist? And what should they expect that person to do that the bookkeeper or a CPA does not?
Yeah. Yeah, bookkeepers and CPAs are focused in the past, and that's where they belong. That's the job you've hired them to do. If you want help looking forward, that's a completely different type of role. And I would say that when people are ready to look at a fractional CFO is when they're tired of trying to run the business looking out of that rear view mirror. And I like to say you've grown up, you're no longer living out of your bank account as your primary accounting system. So usually around $1 million in revenue, but you're a long ways off from being able to afford somebody who makes well into the six figures for a CFO type role. That makes you a good candidate for a fractional CFO. And so what should you expect? Well, you should expect first and foremost number clarity that you can't get from a bookkeeper or CPA. This is not just about fine tuning your P&L and printing it and sending it or sending you a PDF of it every month, right? It's not just that. It really is about building forward looking tools. We have to analyze your business. That's the first step. Then we need to create future looking forecasts. That's the second step, including dashboards, cash flow, all of that. And then the next piece is, okay, we now know where we've been and where we're going. How do we make this picture better? Like that's the big gap that CPAs and bookkeepers just don't have a solution for. We use a playbook that I've created that helps us diagnose based on all the details of what's going on in the business. How do we take this business to the next level? And so that's part 3. And then the real kicker where things get really cool is part 4 is about getting your team more involved. So it doesn't mean that you have to show them how much money's in the bank. It doesn't mean that you have to give them numbers and access to numbers that you're not comfortable with. It just means that we have to get them on the path to understanding the impact of the decisions they're making. And so that they can help you build a self multiplying business where you can go on vacation for 2 weeks and you come back and your business is better than when you left. And that is rare air. Very few entrepreneurs can say that, but it is impossible to say that if you don't have anyone on your team who's capable of understanding what the financial impact of the business decisions they're making are.
Indeed. And Mr. Colin, on navigating challenges and pitfalls, most small business owners hate budgeting. How do you refrain it from restrictive spreadsheet to strategic empowerment tool that gives them permission to spend?
Yeah. Well, the first thing is we've got to get a really tight revenue forecast. Like we don't, I like to separate those conversations. Those are two different things. What I find people do instead is if they start doing budgeting, they just look at last year's budget for expenses and then they talk about their dreams for revenue and they slap those two things together and it paints a really beautiful year for the coming year. And then every time they disappoint because that's not reality, right? So I like to have a revenue conversation. We have to look at historicals. We have to look at your pipeline and kind of the deals you're working and what you expect about the coming months and year. And so we have to nail that down. And then independently, we want to do a kind of a thorough budget review. You know, we can provide tools and ways to do that much more efficiently. This should not be creating a budget on the expense side should not be like a weeks long or month long thing that takes many hours and tons of meetings. It doesn't need to be that. It really is should be pretty common sense. And where people get excited is no A player, whether you're an owner of a business or someone on your team, wants to play a game without a scoreboard. No A player wants to play a game without a scoreboard. And so I get that like doing the budget's a little bit of eating your vegetables is not the most exciting thing you've ever done, but it's creating a scoreboard that you can then manage your company and your team against. And the A players will rise to the top and they will work hard to win the game on that scoreboard.
Mr. Colin, if you could only look at 3 reports to diagnose the true health of a small business, what would that be and what they are looking for?
Hmm. Um, I want to look at, so we already kind of touched on how I feel about the 3 key metrics, but let's just say I want to look at where that revenue is coming from. Better understand. I see a lot of small businesses that have one giant customer. That's a huge danger sign. If you have one giant customer, most banks won't lend to you. No one will buy your business. It's going to be very hard to safely run it, and you're always at the mercy of one person turning the lights off. So I want to see where your revenue comes from. The next one, I want to understand the things you're selling and kind of the margins associated with them. So some businesses have 2 or 3 main products or offers, and I want to know which of those is really the most profitable, not just factoring in the external costs, but in terms of your time and your team's time, how profitable are these offers really? Because that helps us know what to optimize. And then the last one, I want to see your what's called your operating cash flow, which is just a combination of how fast your customers are paying you and how slow you're paying your expenses and your vendors. And I want to learn how those things are connected because it's actually possible to, you kind of referenced this earlier, you can grow out of business. You can run a business, even though it's profitable and it's growing really quickly. The cash model is broken. and it will run out of cash before it can ever get to a good spot. And so those are the three things I would probably want to dig into.
Interesting, Mr. Colin. And from your MBA perspective, what is the most common and costly strategic financial mistake you see small businesses owners make repeatedly?
Mm. Well, I already harped on pricing, so that one we'll just set that one aside for a minute. The other one is trying to be everything to everyone, and I think these things are kind of interrelated. I talked about you have to have a premium price. Well, that means you have to have a premium offer as well. So if I'm trying to be everything to everyone, if anybody who has a credit card is my favorite customer, and I'm willing to do whatever they ask me to do, by definition, I'll never be great. I'll just be okay or maybe good if I'm really lucky. I have to be great to charge a great premium. So it's kind of that combination, that flip side. We see giant companies and they seem like they do 100 things, and you think that they do 100 things and maybe make money on all of them. The reality is they may have strategic reasons for doing that. Some companies are in businesses that they hate that they're trying to get out of. As a small business, I want one or two things that I do really, really well that are unique and exceptional, and that allows me to do them so well that I can charge a premium price, and that just creates a virtuous circle of things getting better and better for my business and me getting stronger and stronger in the market.
And Mr. Colin, to wrap up our discussion for today, if you could leave our audience with one piece of financial wisdom that comes from strategic MBA mindset rather than accounting mon, what would it be?
It would be that you need to understand how you make money and be able to describe it to someone on the back of a napkin. So I always say if we were sitting having a drink somewhere and I pulled out a small cocktail napkin, if I can't explain to you how my overhead structure, like what's that basic cost every month, how my margins, what are those percentages, maybe my sales and marketing as a percentage. Here's the labor team that I have, and I can have this amount of overhead and this amount of labor and go up to this amount of volume. If I can't explain that on the back of a napkin because I have such strong command of it and I've got it in those simple terms, then I don't really understand my business. And it wouldn't be smart to be in business and not understand your customers. It wouldn't be smart to be in business and not understand your products. So it's on that same level, not being able to just really, really get it with your financials. If you don't already feel that way, then find a fractional CFO, find someone who can help you get there because it is a crucial part of being a strong entrepreneur.
Mr. Colin, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your advocacy, your business, or whatever projects that you're doing right now?
Yeah, absolutely. You can always come to the FinElevate website, or you can follow me on LinkedIn or connect with me there. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, but yeah, this is passion. I've spent a lot of time in my life working with in my first business with corporations, giant companies with thousands of employees. I love working with small businesses, and I'm always happy to meet other entrepreneurs.
Yes, definitely. Yes, people, let's support Mr. Colin Sanburg because if you support him for sure, more and more empowering business will rise. So, Mr. Colin, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Maricon people, see you soon.